This is about debugging your CDN. I'm Austin Spires, as Human said. I help lead our customer support and documentation teams. And because every good lightning talk should have a cat, this is my contribution, and it's kind of enormous. Now that I look up there. Before I get started, who's filed a ticket with Fastly before? Okay, wow. Who has had a team member file a ticket with Fastly? Okay, less. I was actually expecting kind of the exact opposite effect. But anyway, these are 8 tools that we use for CDN debugging that you and your team can take and improve things and get to the bottom of things if something should be happening or if you're doing investigations. We use them every day. An alternate title to this is just things that I wish more people knew about Fastly and networks in general. I expect that you might know some of these, but we'll go into other things. These particular tools are fast. They can be run anywhere. They can be run very quickly. They're pretty clear. They have very predictable output. They're things that if you send to our support team, we can dive in that much faster with. And they're easy to use because if you're ever in a frustrating situation, the worst thing that can happen is a crappy tool. You probably know some of these. I know for a fact some of you, I recognize some of the faces, know every single one of these. I guarantee you that not everyone on your team who interacts with Fastly or interacts with the CDN knows all of these. So write them down, share them. We'll share these. They're really easy and straightforward. The first one of these is debug.fastly.com. Is anybody who's familiar with that site? Okay, a very small number of hands. Debug.fastly.com is for when your users report connectivity problems to your site. It's a website where we report ISP information, DNS information, things that we can use to debug from a networking perspective. And all the information is bundled in an encrypted block that you can email to us without having to expose any of the sensitive information to the open internet. And one thing I wanted to note, this site itself has no backend. It's generated completely with varnish synthetic responses in Fastly, so you can hit this as many times as you want. You can build it into a debugging tool that you might run yourself. If that's interesting to you in any way, then find me after. The next one I wanted to talk about is basically curl or it didn't happen. I have to say it every time. So curl SVO dev null in particular is more than just a random header check. What it does is it pulls a request from the CDN, pipes the output to dev null, and spits out the headers. So you're simulating a real request through the network. We get tickets all the time that are, I'm seeing odd caching behavior. And as we know, the first step to fixing a bug is reproducibility. And even just running this simple curl request is, for the most part, all we really need to do to figure out what's happening if you come to us. Don't use curl I. Please don't use curl I. It's not a real request, at least in the sense that I'm talking about. It's just a header check. It doesn't pull the object into the CDN. That causes frustration for people every day. Next one I want to talk about is the Fastly debug header. Who knows that we have a debug header that you can attach to every response? Okay, some of you. It's really, really nifty. Basically, the Fastly debug header is a way to trace a request through the CDN from start to finish and actually have real data about what's happening. To see it in action, we'll just do SVO dev null curl, obviously, because we talked about that earlier, to example.com with this header. And this is what it spits out in addition to all the normal headers that you'll get from a response. But it's a big wall of text, so let's just walk through it piece by piece. The first part is the debug path. And in this example, we're starting with an edge node in San Jose that delivered the object to me along with the time. Then there's the machine in our San Jose POP that actually pulled the object into the cache and the time that happened. And in this particular request, we have shielding enabled, which if you don't know what shielding is, find me after. We can go into all sorts of fun depth. And this is the Seattle cache node that delivered the object to San Jose, if you're still following me here. And this is the final step in the CDN. This is the machine from Seattle that pulled the object in from your backend. Now, the important stuff that I want to point out here are these numbers. These are the timestamps. And if you notice, there's one different one, and 3 are the same, and the 3 in the same are the past. So what you're seeing here is a cache hit. If you're seeing a different edge, the time that it delivered, that differs from the time of pulling the objects, that's what you should see every time with a cache hit. So if you're seeing odd behavior between the network, between Fastly, look at these timestamps, or just send the output to us and we'll get started. The next part of that header output is the debug TTL response. Now, in this case, we had a hit in San Jose. It had the machine name and the object age. Obviously, this should correspond with the cache TTL. It should never be above. It should be evicted unless you have some additional configuration. And in this case, we have a miss from Seattle, and of course, the age is 0 because it wasn't in the cache. So just more information that you can use to get to the bottom of things. The next point is the Fastly X timer. Who knows what the X timer means? All right, a few of you. We're starting to get smaller and smaller numbers. If you're not familiar, you can get this X timer from any curl request with Fastly, and it'll output this header. There's a big string of gibberish that most people don't even look at because it's indecipherable, but we're going to walk through it. The first part here is the timestamp of when the request was actually, or response rather, was actually delivered. And then we have VS0, which is the start timer for when the Varnish started processing the request. This always starts at 0, it counts up from there. And then you have the end timer when the request leaves. Now, this is all in milliseconds, and for the most part, if you see a VE0 of 0 to 1 milliseconds, that's a cache hit. That's what you should expect to see. If you see something beyond that, something's off. If you see something beyond that, that's definitely a cache miss, unless there's a problem with the hit. I'm getting sidetracked. And for the most part, if you're seeing something really high in VE, which really high is relative based on the size of the object, based on your network conditions, that's a problem that you might want to contact us about. So just more information that comes from every single request with Fastly. The next one is this particular MTR command. How many of you use MTR on a regular basis? Okay, we're starting to see more hands. If you don't know what MTR is, it's probably the best network testing tool that I know of. It combines ping and traceroute. It's really lightweight. It's really easy to use. And this particular request that I have on the top is going to send 20 network pings and traces and output a pretty minimized latency and hop report that you can copy and paste, you can send to us, you can share with people. And for the most part, we use this to spot network problems like high latency, bad routing, anything that might be misbehaving in the actual network conditions. Now, to see what this actually looks like, we're running the request to example.com, and it outputs this big blob. Now, what we're seeing here, first on this side, are the host names and IP addresses. This will contain transit vendor information, region data, things like that we can use to see where a request and where the packets are actually touching. The next part there is packet loss information. Obviously, that's pretty straightforward. If there's high packet loss, there's a problem. And the next part are the latency data. We really only look at average, only because there's no median. But yeah, this is the time it takes for all those 20 pings to go through the network. The next one, this is a short one. Who knows that purges have IDs? Every single purge in the system. We're starting to see more hands. Every purge is logged in our system. I don't quite remember how long we retained it for, but if you're able to produce a problem with purging, send us this ID right here, and we'll be able to get to the bottom of it lickety-split. Next one is web page test. Who knows what web page test is? Human kind of stole my thunder earlier. You probably know about it. It's kind of the gold standard for one-off waterfall testing. You can simulate all sorts of browsers and traffic shaping. It's really fun to use, and it's incredibly featured. You can do side-by-side comparisons. You can script it. I think every day, almost, I talk to Human and find out another thing about web page test. It's really cool. And for the most part, everyone on your team should be familiar with the basic stuff in web page test, just how to do a side-by-side comparison for A/B purposes, just to see how something's flowing through a waterfall, just so you can have data in hand if something goes wrong. It's probably the greatest tool that we use every day. The next is IRC. We talk about this a lot, but in case you didn't know, we're pound Fastly on Freenode. We're there most hours, but obviously we're going to be there a little bit more Monday through Friday during waking hours, but we try to keep a 24/7 rotation on. We're always there to help if you're running into problems. We'll set you up a private room if you ask. That way your team can collaborate with our team in a way that you want. You can reach out to us. And this is pretty new, actually. All of our IRC rooms push into our Slack channel. So it's basically a big company-wide ZNC system. So if you put anything into one of those IRC rooms, we'll log it, we'll store it, we'll have it in Slack. And I actually get push notifications every time anyone does anything on pound Fastly and Freenode, so use that information wisely. Don't blow up my phone, please. Yeah, and because I started out building this as a much longer talk, about 20 of these things got cut. So if you want to know more little tips and tricks, just find us afterwards. But anyway, what's the point of this talk? Let's get to the bottom of it. Someone once told me that the best tickets are the ones not filed. It's a little silly, a little self-serving. In reality, these will help us diagnose when you call us in if there's an issue. And our philosophy is that self-service is the fastest feedback loop. And if you can get up and running faster, we don't care who did it. We don't care who gets the credit. We want you guys to be happy, and we want you guys to be successful. And whether that's because we give you guys logs, whether it's because we expose these cool tricks to you, whether it's because you contact us and we help you, that's all in line with us. And I'm Austin Spires, and to speak with a human, contact support@fastly.com or find me after this talk. So thank you.